Board of Education meeting, Wednesday, June 9th, 2021, 6:30 PM, Frederick School in Grays Lake. I need a call to order and a roll call, please.
Weedman,
Here.
Mack,
Here.
Braden,
Here.
Anderson,
Here.
LaCroix,
Here.
Miller,
Here.
and Nash.
Here.
Okay, that gives us quorum, so next we need to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Sorry, next I need a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay,
Miller,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroix,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Okay, next is, we're open for public comments. Do we have anybody signed up? Nope, okay. Next will be board reports. Any board members have any reports? The only thing I'd like to do is thank staff for Sunday's graduation ceremonies for both Park and GMS. That they went off without a hitch other than the wind and a few sunburnt foreheads. So, thank you.
Three of us, I think, Ms. Nash and Ms. Miller and myself attended the first of 3 equity trainings that have been offered by Dr. Dubiel, who's going to be working with us on our equity audit this fall. So that was the lovely hour of 8 a.m. on a Saturday. But it was a great 3 hours, a lot of really just foundational work around what equity is and why it's important, and then understanding sort of the roots of bias and the systemic elements of bias within the educational system. So I thought it was great, very interactive, a lot of good conversations, and looking forward to the next 2. And I know there's some others who are signed up for future cohorts of that session as well. So, and if you still want to join, I think you can contact Dr. Dubiel and she'll get you in.
I do have an update, as last week I attended the quarterly meeting of CEDAL for the governing board. And just a few updates from that, because they only meet quarterly. The governing board meets quarterly. So Carrie McHugh, who's in District 118, was reelected president of the governing board, and I'm serving again as secretary of the governing board. We have upcoming meetings again in August, December, March, and June of next year, so it happens once a quarter. One of the things we talked about this time too was the importance of sending an alternate in the case of my absence. So if I ever have to be absent, I will likely ask one of you to serve as an alternate. It can be any of the additional board members who serve in that capacity and come in, because we want to make sure that District 46 has a consistent voice in any of the things that's happening at that governing board meeting. The main topic of last week's meeting was the budget. And it essentially was the same type of approval process as we do here. So there was an initial pre-budget, and then the final approval will come up at the August meeting. And one of the interesting things too that they have seen, that they mentioned to all of their member districts who were in attendance, was that the enrollment trends for CEDAL are on the decline as well, which is consistent with districts around the area. But Val Donnan, who's the superintendent, feels that of course, was, exacerbated by the pandemic, and they should see an uptick in enrollment when things continue to return to normal. So the next meeting is coming up in August, and so I plan to attend, but if I cannot, I'll come to one of you. And that's my update for CEDOL. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo what's already been said. So I think Christy with the equity series summed that up nicely. Mr. Wheatman spoke to the graduations. But, I would just be remiss if, I didn't pipe in to just offer a word of thanks to the administrators, the facilities team that pulled off that, gargantuan effort to accommodate 3 graduations and then turn over and make sure that the families got in. We started on time, things went off without a hitch. And then, most importantly and most impressively to me, and I'd like to just recognize the students of the graduating 8th graders of District 46, because the speeches provided by the students of GMS, Park, who am I forgetting? 2 GMSs and Park were absolutely phenomenal. And to have children attending District 46 and knowing, the readiness and the preparedness that the district is pouring into our children, especially coming off of this year that we came off of, to see the engagement, excitement, and just level of vision and passion from our students was, it just really just, my cup runneth over. So again, congratulations to the graduating 8th graders of D46. I'm so proud of you.
Michelle or Jason?
Yeah, along the same lines around the graduation, clearly it was a really nice day for everyone. I was lucky enough to give the diploma certificate covers to, family friends of ours, and have been hearing from friends and neighbors who had graduates that it was just a lovely ceremony, and they also appreciated the, obvious care and dedication that went into making it a special day for them. So thanks to all who helped pull that off in such a wonderful way.
Christy, I know you're out in the universe out there. You have anything?
I'm sorry to mention. And are you getting feedback or is it just me?
No, we're getting feedback.
All right, I'm muted and I'm going to respond on something quick. I just wanted to let you know also that the case study that I mentioned about a month ago has been published on the Green Schoolyard American website. It's in the resource library. I'm so excited, and thank you to everyone who helped make that a reality.
So I'm guessing that people were having trouble hearing Mrs. Miller, but because I know what she's talking about, I think I can fill in the blank. So Christy, I hope you don't mind. I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Christy Miller put together a case study of our school district and how we were able to respond to the pandemic using many outdoor resources. And that study has been published and it's gone live on a website. And we'll make sure that that's forwarded to all board members for you to see. Christy, I'm not sure if there's anything else that you wanted to express, but I tried to do that on your behalf. And I think we'll leave it at that for now. Okay.
Okay. Next, we're up to the superintendent report.
Yeah. Well, I too was going to talk about graduation. I'm not going to reiterate all of your comments, but I just wanted to add that School District 46 is enormously grateful to School District 127. They were wonderful, generous partners to us regarding their space and their people and their talent, and we are very grateful. So that's the last piece I wanted to mention about graduation. And although I have some things to say about the end of the school year, rather than you hearing it from me, I actually would like to roll film for a moment. Leslie has put together a slideshow for us, and I think we'll just go ahead and see it. It shows both the end of the school year and graduation. Is everyone somewhere that you can see one of the screens? Okay. So Chris, if you can go ahead and do that, that would be great. So I hope you enjoyed that, and with great thanks to Leslie for putting it together. Really, we had a wonderful end to a very difficult school year, and we could not be prouder. And with that, I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Lewis to talk about our summer programs that have begun.
Thank you for that. Today was day 3 of summer school, so we don't waste any time. We jumped right into summer school on Monday. You may remember from our presentation, we have a number of summer school programs going on. I just wanted to give you an update on the current numbers and how we're doing. First day was a little bit slow going with students being in buildings they weren't familiar with and maybe staff they didn't know. But the second day got better and today was even better. So we know that kids adjust very, very quickly to all of those things. Few issues here and there, but we are tweaking and modifying as we need to. So the Adelante program for our EL student that's held here at Frederick School, we have 92 students on site. We have 37 students who are remote for a grand total of 129 students who are getting extra support in the EL program. Some of the classrooms are being taught in Spanish for our bilingual students. Some of them are taught in English. So a good combination. They're housed here in this building. The other program here at Frederick is a program called Bridges. This was by invitation. We have 85 students who are on site, and they're from students from Meadowview Park, Woodview, Frederick, and GMS. So from kindergarten through exiting 7th graders. And then at Avon School, we have our Title I program. And our Title I program is for our students who attend our Title I schools, which are Avon and Prairie View. So we have 74 students who are involved in that program from kindergarten through 4th grade. And then our last program, but certainly not the least program, is our ESY, our Extended School Year Program at Prairie View. That's for students who are identified through an IEP or 504 plan needing to have longer school year. We had 111 students on site with 8 students remote for a grand total of 119. I didn't share, but in each of the programs, we have a number of staff members involved. In Adelante, the EL program, we have 20 staff members working. At Bridges, we have 14. At Title I, we have 10. And Extended School Year, we have 40 staff members involved. We're remembering that all of this for this school year is being paid out of either our Title III grant or our ESSER II grant. So all of the bus transportation, all of the materials purchased, all of the salaries for staff are part of that plan for the ESSER money. So really no district funds were being used for the summer school program to support unfinished learning. So we are, tomorrow will be the end of the first week. We'll have 3 more weeks after that, and we'll be done on July 1st. So we'll be glad to share more information later, but wanted to just give you an update of how we were doing and the final numbers.
Thank you, Paul, and we will hand this over to Dr. Diaz, who has 2 topics for us.
Thank you. Yes, I have 2 quick updates. The first one is about BPAC, or the Parent Summit. It took place on May 15th, and it was a virtual meeting, but they had live concurrent sessions and then some previously recorded sessions. It was a really great Saturday. The keynote was given by Dr. Quadri, and he is an author, an activist, and educator focused on leadership and education and youth involvement. It was very impactful, empowering. Really enjoyed it. There were many other sessions that focused on parents' rights, BPAC events, homeschool liaisons, and then we just really, I felt like it was a really good day of learning, and we're going to meet with some fellow board members to talk about different sessions that we attended and learning and takeaways from there. And then the other topic is that we have 3 teachers who are coming from Spain. So they will be arriving in late July or early August, and will be teaching in our one-way dual language program. So Almudena will be in 7th grade, Elena Sanchez will be in 2nd at Prairie View, and Maria Jesus will be kinder at Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. And that closes the superintendent's report. We've closed one school year. Summer is bridging us into the next school year, and as you will hear in a little while, we are deep into planning for the 21-22 school year.
Okay, thank you. Next is the community report for the Community Engagement Committee.
All right, how's this? Is there feedback?
Christy, I think you froze, at least on the screen.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I don't have a formal report to share, so you can just keep going.
Keep going. She doesn't have a phone. We don't have Ooh. Sorry, that's 3 hours sleep. Okay, next will be the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as well as the updated to the personnel addendum.
So moved?
Second.
Braden,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
LaCroix,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye. Okay, now we're on to action items. These are agenda items that will be voted on the board for this meeting. The first one is I need a motion to approve a resolution to establish the fiscal year and authorize the development of the 2022 fiscal year budget.
So moved?
Second.
This is just a normal every year, once in a year motion, so.
Okay. Weedman,
Aye?
Miller,
Aye.
Mack, Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroix,
Aye.
and Anderson.
Aye.
Next is a motion to approve the CLIC workers' compensation renewal. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Anybody have any questions? Nope, okay.
Okay. LaCroy,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Next is a motion to approve the CLIC property and casualty insurance renewal.
So moved.
Second.
Anderson,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
and Weedman.
Aye. Next is a motion to approve the school district's depositories.
So moved.
I'll second.
Mack,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and Nash.
Aye.
Next is a motion to approve the vaccine pot expenditures that we had in the amount of $21,285.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second.
Do you want a review of that expenditure? Explanation?
please.
Yeah, that might be worthwhile. Can you speak about that for a moment?
Okay, the district worked with the school districts in Lake County to create 2 Lake County pods in order to facilitate the vaccination process for school staff. The pods were very successful, vaccinating 18,000 educators who live or work in Lake County. The actual overall costs were $842,000, $842,175 to operate the pods. CCSD 46 employs 535 staff, which is 2.53% of the 21,168 total Lake County staff. Therefore, the actual cost to us was $21,285.
Okay.
Miller,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and LaCroy.
Aye.
Next is an approval, I need a motion to approve the Intergovernmental Agreement for COVID-19 testing and support.
So,
So
second.
moved.
Second.
Yeah, I'd be happy to give some more information about this one also because it's not a regular yearly, well, it's not an expenditure at all, in fact, but it's not a regular activity for us. So you will hear me talk a little bit later when I'm presenting information for the next school year. You'll hear me talk about this shield testing. This is the University of Illinois saliva test that you've heard about where people can spit into a little vial and there's an analysis to see if somebody is positive for COVID-19. I've been working very closely with some individuals connected to this, this test, and they have provided us with this IGA, this Intergovernmental Agreement, because the test was developed at the University of Illinois. So in order for us to be able to administer it, we have to have this IGA. I do want to note the following pieces of information for you. First of all, because of our tier funding, so in other words, the fact that we are a lower tier district, meaning that we do not have the funds that many districts around us have, we're able to get this test free of charge. It is highly recommended by the state of Illinois that we do this kind of testing, and you'll hear me talk more later about how we'll do it, but what I wanted to share with you right now is that I've done some research on how other school districts do it. We'd be able to go through the process on a weekly basis with a pretty minimal amount of lost instructional time. So in other words, a class can get through the testing process in about 10 or 15 minutes once a week. However, the reason I bring that up is that right now it's recommended by the state. You're going to hear me talk later about how much change we continue to have. If it turns into something that's no longer recommended by the state, we probably won't do it, because if we can avoid any instructional time loss, we want to avoid that. Any questions for me about this topic? Okay.
Okay?
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and LaCroy.
Aye.
Okay, next is a motion to approve the Durham contract renewal for the 2021-2022 school year. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Yep, please.
The annual contract with Durham Transportation renewal was discussed at the May 19th board meeting. Quick reminder, the renewal is a 6% increase and would be the 9th year we've renewed with Durham. Do you have any questions about what's presented in your memos?
Mr. Waldman, just a clarifying question, that this is the last year on this contract, is that correct?
The district is allowed to annually renew outside of the 5 years of the original contract renewal, as long as no other firms make us aware that they wish to bid on it. So we're allowed to renew annually as long as we feel that the company is doing a reasonable job and they wish to continue with us.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and LaCroy.
Aye.
Okay, and next is a motion to approve the 2021-2022 Arbor Management Contract Renewal.
So moved.
Second.
The annual contract with Arbor Foods renewal was discussed at the May 19th meeting. The contract is to provide food at all our buildings for all students free of charge, including breakfast and lunch. The current contract in place is capped to an annual increase of 3%. The renewal also includes a minimum wage increase mandated by law. Do I have any questions about the renewal as presented? Thank you.
Okay?
Okay. Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
and LaCroy.
Aye.
Okay, next is a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding for the Grays Lake Federation of Teachers.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is the agreement between the board and the teachers union for the one-year contract extension. It was only on financials. Okay,
Okay. Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Weedman,
aye.
and LaCroy.
Aye.
Okay, next is a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding for the Grays Lake PSRP union.
So moved.
I'll second. This is, just falls in line with the last one. Actually, all these fall in line together, so. Okay,
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Weedman,
aye.
and LaCroy.
Aye.
All right, next I need a motion to approve the salary increases for non-union district office staff for the 2021-2022 school year.
So moved.
Second.
This is just salary increases for the non-union district office staff, which is in line with the negotiated rates for the unions. Any questions? No, okay.
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
LaCroy.
Aye.
Okay, next is a motion to approve the administrator contracts as presented. I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay, this is, again, just a contract approval for all the administrators in the district, which is in line with the negotiated contract with the teachers. Any questions? No questions. Okay,
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Weedman,
aye.
LaCroy.
Aye.
And the next is a motion to approve the superintendent's contract as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, this is a extension of Dr. Glickman's contract for, well, technically it's an extension for 4 years, so it's a new 5-year contract. So, any questions on that? No? Okay,
Nash,
Aye.
Braden,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Weedman,
aye.
LaCroy.
Aye.
Okay, we are now up to unfinished business. And what is on there is a discussion and presentation for the 2021-2022 school plan.
I think that will be me. And I'm going to go ahead and present right here from my seat because you'll all be looking at a slideshow that my friend Mr. Vipon will put up for us. All right. Well, good evening. Here we are at the start of the summer and thinking deeply about next school year. And I want to start by talking a little bit about what we've learned in the past school year. So we'll go to our next slide. What have we learned this year? Well, I bring you a quote from Dwight D. Eisenhower: "Plans are nothing, planning is everything." Now, that may not make you feel great to hear your superintendent say that plans are nothing. But here's what I mean by this, and I'm guessing you can guess, that in the past year, every time we made a plan and we did all of the work to get something started, something changed, right? Conditions changed, guidance changed, and we had to change our plans. However, every time that happened, we built on the last plans that we created and made new plans. We are deep into planning for next year, which is not to say that the plan is set. It isn't. In fact, when I first started talking about doing a presentation this evening, I expected that I would also send out a written plan, like we did so often last year. And I have one ready to go, but I'm not, well, almost ready, but I'm not sending it out right now because things have changed so much. As recently as yesterday, new guidance, that to me it would be foolish to send a plan out into our community and give people the idea that here's exactly what it is next year, because we just don't know that. So this is really tonight a status report. Before, however, I go into that planning, I do want to share 2 other lessons that we've learned this year. One is that our staff can do anything, and the other is that our students can do anything. And when you think about all of the conversations that we've had over the past, let's say 15 months, all of the things that we worried about, so few of them ever happened. And that's because of the resiliency of our children and the hard work of our staff. As I met with our administrative team today and we talked about what we know and what we don't know and what we think will happen, we also talked about where we were at this time last year and what a powerful place we are in this year, both because of the confidence that we've been able to build over the year and because of the knowledge that we have. And frankly, because so many of us have gotten so much more comfortable with ambiguity. Slide, please. All right. I'm going to talk with you about some guidance that we have, and I have 2 slides for you that have guidance. Each one of these has a link. We're not going to dive into the links, but they're there and available for you. My purpose is to just give you a little bit of an idea of the things that have happened over the past couple of months and what the takeaways are for us from these bits of guidance. So the first one I want to talk about is from March of 2021. That was the revised public health guidance for schools that we got from IDPH and ISB back in March. And really, that houses all of the mitigation strategies that we used to open on-site this past year. We are awaiting revisions. You're going to hear me talk a little bit about some revisions that didn't actually revise that guidance, but new information that we have. But we're awaiting more revisions because, as you know, CDC keeps making announcements and changes. Vaccines keep growing. We're all waiting for our little ones to be able to get vaccinated. So all of those pieces, we expect to learn more from ISB and IDPH about their guidance. Right now, what we have from last year is mostly what we have for next year. Then in May, also from ISB, we received a document that you heard me speak about at some point called the Return to In-Person Lessons Learned from the Pandemic. It's a pretty bulky document. It has a lot of congratulations in it, which is very, very nice. Congratulations about what schools have done over the past year and what we've learned. And then there's a lot of information about instructional planning. I will tell you that throughout the state, kind of the murmur about that from educators was that instructional information was just about good teaching, and it was information that we already had and we already knew. It was not new direction. Also in May, we received something called Interim Post-Vaccination Guidance for Schools. So, right, people started getting vaccinated, so now we got a little bit more of an update. The takeaway from that one was pretty important, and it said that individuals who are close contacts but are fully vaccinated and are not symptomatic do not need to quarantine. So, of course, this was meaningful to our staff before it was meaningful to students, since staff were able to be vaccinated sooner than students, and it meant that if they were close contacts, which meant at that time within 6 feet of an individual who was ill with COVID-19, within that 6 feet for 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period, they were fully vaccinated and they weren't symptomatic, they didn't have to quarantine. There'll be more information about this to come. Slide, please. All right, then, also in May, we had a big surprise. And this was a resolution that came from our state superintendent, Dr. Carmen Ayala, who previously had been sharing, and we'd been hearing from ISB, that remote learning for next year should be available through schools for students who have their own health risk, or perhaps there's a health risk of a family member, and they would be specifically at risk if they got COVID-19. We had been told that for those children, there should be remote learning. Well, in May of 2021, the state superintendent put forth a resolution, and I'm just going to read it to you. Beginning with the 2021-2022 school year, all schools must resume fully in-person learning for all student attendance days, provided that remote instruction be made available for students who are not eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine and under a quarantine order by a local public health department or the IDPH. All right, let's break that down for a moment. So not eligible for a COVID-19 vaccine, well, really at this point that means anybody under 12. And under a quarantine order. That means that they have been in close contact with somebody who's ill with COVID-19. So that's a short period of time, right? That's at 10 to 14 days. And according to this resolution, that's the only group of people who meet both of those qualifications. not vaccinated, or not eligible, excuse me, not eligible to be vaccinated, and they've been exposed. Those are the people for whom we should be providing some type of remote learning, and that everybody else should be on site. That was a big change from what we had previously heard. I will comment that at the moment, that is just a resolution. It is not law. It's a declaration that is not yet in effect, but we are told by ISB that it will be in effect. You've heard me talk before about the work we were doing throughout Lake County with different school districts, where we were talking about putting together kind of a cohort group so that we could provide remote instruction for students who were at a health risk. This declaration, and this resolution and communications that our Lake County folks have had with ISB make it not possible to move forward with that plan. And so I wanted you all to know that right now. I'll be talking a little while about some possibilities that, that may be in place, but I wanted everyone to hear about this one now. And the last piece of guidance that I wanted to mention came out last week. Then yesterday, when I was reviewing this presentation again, the link was broken because it was down at ISB. And then lo and behold, at the end of the day, there was new guidance. And so the link was working again. So that's how quickly things change. But this is the interim guidance on testing for COVID-19 in community settings in schools. This is what brings us to that screening that I was talking about earlier that you all just voted on. And the concept here is that if a school district is using screening, like the Shield saliva test that we would be using, it modifies the idea of a close contact in the classroom. It modifies it to individuals who are screened to just 3 feet or less for 15 or more within 15 minutes or more within a 24-hour period. So that means that if a child is going through the screening process, if they are within 6 feet of somebody who's ill, they do not have to quarantine. Only if they've been within 3 feet of someone who's ill would they have to quarantine. So that's a big important piece of information for us. Slide, please. I'd like to talk now about what we expect to be similar in the fall, similar to what we were doing this past spring. But before I do that, I want you to notice the tag on the front of this slide, which says, as of early June 2021. All right, this is why we don't want to put this thing out in print. This is why we don't want to tell our community we know exactly what's going to happen because we see things changing. But as of today, here's what is similar next year from this past spring. Masking. Expecting people to be masked, although I will tell you that as recently as yesterday, we were told that outdoors, people will not need to be masked anymore. Social distancing will continue. Therefore, classroom desks will continue to face one direction, the way they have in this past spring. We expect there to be continued bus limitations, so we currently only have 50 students on a bus, and unless we hear otherwise, we'll have to continue with only 50 students on a bus. There's a cost to that, and we'll talk about that too. A student self-certification process, so that's the blue card system we were using this past spring, where students were wearing a blue card on a lanyard around their neck to show that they have screened at home and they do not have any COVID symptoms. We are expecting that to continue. And arrival and dismissal procedures, we expect them to be the same or similar. Those kept us socially distanced and therefore are important. Slide, please. Also, we have the other following similarities. Lunch and recess procedures. We are sitting right now in what is also a lunchroom. So if you look at those desks, that's how we expect lunch to continue to be. Although here at Frederick, those desks fill this entire space during lunch. We've just moved them for our board meeting. We expect to continue with similar or the same recess procedures that we have this past spring. Last spring, we did not have on-site breakfast for students, and that was decided upon because in order to have breakfast or any meal at school, you have to take off your mask. we don't want kids eating breakfast in class and thereby sitting near other students with their masks off for an extended period of time. So we were taking home breakfast. So kids at the end of the day who wanted breakfast would take it home and have it for breakfast at home the next day before they came back to school. We expect that will continue. Protocols for symptomatic students will probably be the same or similar. So that's about when students have to be sent home, under what circumstances, and how we keep them isolated in school, in a space, while we're waiting for family members to pick them up. And of course, daily sanitization excuse me, of high touch points. In other words, how we keep things clean and sanitized. We expect that to be the same. Next slide, please. Now we're going to start talking about what we expect to be different in the fall, different from this past spring. All right, so now we are talking about a return to 5 days per week on site for all students grades K-8. Remember that this past spring, we had about 70% of students on site. We expect all of our students to be on site. So now I'm going to roll it back and talk again about that remote piece. So you already heard me talk about, well, we thought we were going to be able to provide remote instruction for students at high risk. That's no longer the case, or we expect to hear for sure that it's no longer the case. What we expect is that we'll be providing instruction for students who are remote instruction of some type, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Remote instruction for students who who are ineligible for the vaccine and who are under quarantine. There is another group of students that we may be able to provide remote instruction for, and that would be students who are at high risk. But what the state is telling us is if we need to do that, it's not 5 days a week of full instruction. Instead, it's 5 hours a week of instruction, which is really what we do right now if there is a child who needs homebound or hospital instruction. It's similar to that. So that would be very, very different from the remote instruction that we have been doing this past year. I want to make sure you know that we don't yet have clear guidance from ISB. So we don't know yet what would even qualify a child for that kind of 5 hour a week instruction, nor do we know what the instruction would actually look like or who would be providing it. So we're not going to go too deeply down that road as an administrative team until we have more information from the state. All right, another difference from this past spring is a return to full day K. We've been talking about that a lot, and everyone knows that we're back to that. We're also returning to our pre-pandemic pre-K schedule and a return to pre-pandemic teaching strategies. All right, I want to pause there. So there's the teaching of the past, right? The teaching that we did before the pandemic. Then there was the teaching of the past year, and oh my goodness, did our teachers work hard to keep our students engaged on the Google Meet. As frustrating and difficult as that was, there's some good that came out of it. Our teachers learned new things to do, new tools to use electronically, and so the good pieces that came out are things our teachers will continue to do. But that will be sprinkled into the teaching that we've done in the past. We will again be having kids with books open in front of them and writing on pieces of paper and all of those things that you picture, and working with students around them, figuring out ways, maybe still socially distanced, but still doing some group work, all kinds of things that were very difficult to do on a Google Meet. So we're excited, very excited about that change. Slide, please. Other changes are how we will handle those students who need to quarantine. So if a child has to go home to quarantine and they do not qualify for a vaccine, so we are providing them with some remote learning, they will be able to get that remote learning by connecting into their class through a Google Meet, but it does not mean that all the other students will be using the Google Meet. They won't be. So really the child will be at home kind of watching what's happening in the classroom and engaging as possible. That's what we are envisioning for those students who are quarantining. Another difference that we're really pleased about is formalizing our intervention blocks. So this is a process that many of our schools have had in the past, but maybe in different ways. We understand and acknowledge the importance of looking at our students' unfinished learning from the past year and a half, all of the pieces of information and the skills that we wanted them to attain that some of them didn't attain. And therefore, we'll be making sure that all schools have an intervention block where children will be able to get the kind of instruction that they need, individually need, in different kinds of interventions. And we have a team of people working this summer on changes to those interventions. We're also excited that students will be able to move to various instructional spaces rather than having teachers come to them. We did some of that in the spring, but mostly teachers were coming to the classroom. So we'll be moving back to children going to the music room, going to the art room, going to see their reading teacher, going to see their special education teacher, whatever it is that they used to go out of the classroom for that, they'll be able to do that again. And finally, extracurricular activities will be resumed. We're so pleased about that. We know how important that is for children. Of course, we will have to follow whatever mitigation strategies are required of us. We'll see what that means in August. And it's possible that there may be some extracurricular activities that won't be resumed, but for the most part, they will be. Moving on to the next slide, please. All right, this last set of differences has to do with that screening test protocol that I was talking about, that SHIELD test. So we will be beginning the screening test protocol through SHIELD Illinois. I mentioned before there will be no cost to our school district, and that means not only do we not need to pay for the tests, we also don't need to pay for the staff. They will hire people, bring people in who will go from school to administer the testing for us. It's only for unvaccinated individuals. So I'm going to tell you right now, I'm hoping that the majority of students at GMS will not be having this screening because they'll be vaccinated. That's certainly the hope of our school district. Hoping that many students at Park, the upper grade students, will not be going through this screening, and some of them at Frederick too. And of course, we don't know what will happen in the fall and whether we may have a vaccine for our little ones, so that could change the matter as well. In any case, it's only for unvaccinated individuals. It is voluntary for families, and we will likely be using what's called an opt-out measure, which means that parents would either sign a form or write a letter, we're not sure yet, to say no, they don't want their children getting this screening. So that's the method that we'll probably use for that. And why is this important? Well, because quarantining is not going to be needed for in-class exposure for any individuals who are fully vaccinated or any individuals who have passed a screening test, that SHIELD test, and have not been closer than 3 feet for 15 minutes or more within 24 hours. So we are looking at narrowing down the times that students even have to quarantine to a tiny little number. We're hoping it almost never happens. Well, we always hoped it almost would never happen, but really we have reason to believe that there will be very little quarantining that will be needed as long as either people are vaccinated or parents are agreeing that their children can have this screening test. Next slide, please. The rest of this presentation is about our use of the ESSER ARP funds. So board, you know that this is our third grant that we've gotten or are getting funds that can be used to deal with the pandemic in response to all that's happened to us. So first I'm going to just share some background information with you about these funds. In March of 2021, the American Rescue Plan was signed into law, and it brought $1.9 trillion of assistance throughout the nation. Not all for education, not all for School District 46, but education got a lot of it. $122 billion has gone to schools of some type. And if we narrow it down to our piece of the pie, it's just over $2.1 million going to District 46. Now, we have until the end of September in 2024 to spend that money, and that's really important to know, because in a few moments, you're going to hear me talk about some expenditures we are planning on over the summer for next year. But we have no intention of expending all of that money or even planning to expend all of that money right now. If you wanted to know where every dollar is going, I could not tell you. And the reason I could not tell you is that we don't know what's to come. So we are trying to be very, very intentional about how we are carefully spending the funds. And at least 20% of the funds must be spent on addressing unfinished learning. And so you'll hear, as I talk about how we'll be spending the money, some of those areas are very specifically towards unfinished learning. Slide, please. All right, so what are we planning to do for next year? Well, you heard me talk at a previous board meeting about the ESSER II funds and how we were using some of those funds to pay for 3 more classroom teachers throughout the school district. These were our homeroom teachers, classroom teachers at elementary buildings, where we had planned classes that were, the classroom enrollment was within the board limits for how large a classroom can be, but exceeded the limits of the actual physical classroom when we're socially distancing in that classroom. So when we're making sure that our students are no more than 3 feet apart. So in those cases, we needed to add a classroom teacher. So we paid for 3 more classroom teachers out of the ESSER II funds. Now, we're going to pay for a little bit of additional special staff for the same reason. And we'll be spending that out of the ESSER III funds, or the ESSER ARP funds. We also have purchased desks and chairs to accommodate the number of desks and chairs at lunchrooms that are needed for social distancing, right? We never planned to have desks and chairs in our lunchrooms. We have cafeteria tables. That's what we're used to using. Last spring, we had to scratch throughout the district to find enough desks and chairs for our auditoriums and such. And as we include many more students on site, we needed to purchase more desks and chairs, and we talked about that at a previous board meeting as well. As a part of ESSER II, we paid for an indoor air quality assessment, or assessments, one for each school, that was partially allocated for in ESSER II, and the rest of it is coming out of the ESSER ARP funds. Slide, please. We are also going to be spending more on learning intervention materials. I was talking about that intervention block that we'll have at each school. We are in the process of assessing our learning intervention materials, and likely we'll be purchasing more over the summer to make sure that we have the same materials for students in every school, or in the schools that are similar to each other in terms of grade levels, so that we can ensure that children at each one of our schools have similar experiences and opportunities. So that deals very deeply with the concept of unfinished learning. PPE, we expect we'll have to spend more money on PPE, and that will come out of ESSER ARP funds, along with technology upgrades to enhance teaching and learning. Slide, please. All right, let's talk about future expenditures. So this is that slide of here are some things we're thinking about, things that might happen. Paul was talking earlier, Mr. Lewis was talking earlier about our summer programs. Our Summer Bridge program is a new program this year, and it is specifically for students that we're concerned about, students who have some unfinished learning. We've paid for this year's Summer Bridge program out of ESSER II. ESSER II also extends into another school year, so we are intending to pay for next year's Summer Bridge program also out of ESSER II. However, it is possible that we'll want a 3rd year of a similar program, in which case we would be using these ESSER ARP funds. Online curriculum resources, we're continuing to research those and see if there are some other subscriptions and resources that may be useful when it comes to supporting our students in their unfinished learning, so that could come out of ARP. Literacy materials, you will hear a lot over the next 12 months, I would say, about new literacy materials for our students, and certainly that supports addressing unfinished learning concerns. Social emotional learning materials. How often over the past year did we talk about how are our students doing emotionally? And we are looking at a variety of materials to support our students in that way. Along with additional student support programs to deal with all of their various learning needs. It's possible that we may in the future use some of these funds to support new teacher mentoring. And then bringing it way back to something I talked about earlier, remember those buses I mentioned? If we don't get the ability to have more students on a bus, if we have to stick with 50 students on a bus, we will need to add more buses to our contract, and that will cost money. And so we will use ESSER ARP funds for that. Slide, please. Believe it or not, for somebody who said we don't know exactly what's going to happen next year, I had a lot to say, that actually is the end of this presentation, and I'm very happy to take your questions, Board.
Dr. Glickman, question, clarifying point and then a question. So I want to be clear that if you opt out of the screening and or you're not eligible, should a situation arise in school where you are exposed and it's greater than 3 feet, those students, whether you opt out or you don't yet qualify, would be quarantined?
I'm trying to work my way through your question. I think the answer is yes, but I'm just going to say it to you back a different way. How does that sound?
Sure.
Okay. So students would, I'm just going to talk in terms of students right now. Students would have to quarantine if they were not eligible for a vaccine. So they haven't been vaccinated. They haven't been vaccinated, let's put it that way. They haven't been vaccinated, and they have opted out of the screening. Then they would have to quarantine. And then I'm going to add one more interesting layer onto it. Then we are required to provide remote instruction for them, which you remember is kind of that looking into the classroom piece, only if they were eligible for, if they were ineligible for even having a vaccine. If a family just chose that they weren't going to do the vaccine, then they're not eligible for that remote instruction.
All right, that's what I was getting at. Thank you.
Okay, it's complicated and hard to say.
Yep. And then my next and last question, part of the presentation had discussed ESSER 2 and ESSER ARP funds being spent on air quality tests. Do we have the results of those tests
No,
back yet?
we don't. Is there anything you want to add, Mr. Wildman or Adam?
The work has not been completed yet. They will walk all our buildings and complete the indoor air quality assessments, and then they will deliver us as separate reports for each building, and then we'll make them available to the board.
Okay, thank you. And then it would be the expectation that if there were any recommendations coming out of that, that we would be able to tap into the ESSER funds to support that.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And that's a perfect example of why we wouldn't just go spend all the money right now, right? Because we're waiting for that kind of an update. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Also on the topic of ESSER 2 funds, was the 20% minimum that is to be spent on unfinished learning, is that new clarity, the 20% figure?
So I don't believe that was a requirement of ESSER 2, was it? No, so it's not, that wasn't a part of ESSER 2.
No.
It's a part of this one, the ARP.
Okay.
And it came, we've been hearing about that really as soon as we started getting any guidance at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Do you want to add anything, Mr. Lewis? It looks like you do.
Just the application isn't available until July 1st, and so we're not getting a preview, we're not hearing anything, but we are hearing there's probably going to also be some additional percentage set-asides. So the rumors are flying about what the percentage or what the set-asides are going to be. But I've heard 1% for this or 2% for that, but the 20% was the big one, and that was out of the American Rescue Plan, ARP, minimum.
I just have a quick question about the shield test.
Yes.
Have they given you what the reliability is on that test? And then what if there's a positive, do they have to go get a negative before they come back?
So I have all of that information. I don't have it at my fingertips right now, but there, and in fact, a few of us are going to be doing an orientation with them in a couple of weeks. So after we do that, I can come back and give more information at a board meeting. But a rough answer to your question is yes, there is a protocol for what they have to do and what kind of testing they have to get in order to re-enter into a classroom. And highly reliable. Did you hear that? Highly reliable test.
Dr. Glickman, do we know, back to the air quality test, is that a one-time test or will there be periodic checks of air quality throughout the year?
Mr. Halpern, can you help with that question? I'm pretty sure it's a one-time test, right? Yeah.
It's a one-time test to assess the whole entire system throughout the whole entire district. It will go through every piece of mechanical equipment that we have, from our exhaust fans to any mechanical equipment that we have. At that point there, it will give us the results to how our systems are operating, and then what we can do to better our systems and bring in more fresh air and quality to the classrooms, and assure that we are getting our the best air quality for the schools.
It's okay. Thank you, Adam.
Christy, were you able to hear that? So it's a one-time.
Just bits and pieces.
It's a one-time test that they'll go through every bit and piece of all of our equipment, and then they'll come back with a report on how to improve air quality, either by fresh air or whatever. And then all the recommendations go from that report.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sum that up pretty well, Adam?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It does go into filtration.
Yeah, it's every component of the air handling, filtration, filters, everything, so, top to bottom. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
Mine's less of a question, because I'm sure if you knew, you would have told us. But I am super curious about whether the ISBE will eventually require proof of vaccination like they do with other vaccinations. So I don't know if you've heard any chatter about it. Clearly, they haven't said anything yet.
They haven't, but I can give a little more information. We are, first of all, we are told that we're going to have access to the statewide database that has people's, has the information as to whether or not people are vaccinated. So I don't have access to that yet, but we are told that by the fall we will have access to that. We also expect that if that, for whatever reason, isn't the best way for us to get the information, we will have some kind of a protocol to use. So for example, if a child was a close contact of somebody and isn't getting the screening test, and the parent or guardian says, but my child has been vaccinated, we would be doing something like, please give us access to their card to show that they've been vaccinated. So if it's not the database that we'd be using, we would have some other process to use.
Okay, I think that's all the questions. Thank you. Okay, next is topics for future agenda items. Oh, sorry. Ooh, no, I got to back up a little bit. We're on the new business, and is the discussion of the creation of the Finance Committee. Chris, you have a presentation you can do here first?
I can definitely go first.
Chris, I can start off the conversation
sure.
if you don't mind. So for the better part of 2 years now, we've been tossing around the idea of reinstituting a finance committee here that's been long dormant. We tabled that initiative because we didn't have the consistent permanent leadership at the top of our business office. We have that consistent leader now for the next 10 or 15 years. I'm not sure your retirement horizon, Chris, I don't know. So that in conjunction with the work that came out of the strategic plan, right, when not all of you were in the finance subcommittee, but I think we reported out, Chris reported out, that was going to be one of the things that we did because of the work in the strategic plan. So to that end, earlier today, Jim Weedman and I met with Dr. Glickman and Mr. Wildman, and we had a conversation about that centered around really, what does a finance committee look like here at D46? And I think with that, Chris, if you wouldn't mind sharing your deck that kind of gets into broad outlines of what that committee looks like.
All right. Okay, here is a short presentation about the options available to the board in developing a finance committee. As we know, it was discussed in strategic planning. So here's our mission: empowering learners, creating equity, cultivating community. How do we do that? How do we fulfill those mission steps? Well, we do it by having actionable goals, and here is our finance goal that was affirmed last month by the Board of Education. Review, expand, and clarify financial practices to increase transparency and communication with a focus on aligning financial decision-making to district goals. We're also guided by board policy. We have 3 specifically. 4:20, which determines that we have a fund balance of 25 to 30%. We're also guided by board policy 2:150, which allows the board to create standing committees to assist with the board's governance function, and board policy 2:110, enabling the president to make appointments to those committees. There we go. So what is a finance committee? It's a committee of the board whose members work directly with the superintendent and the business manager on financial issues. This allows us to take a deeper dive into topics that are important to the board and the community. The committee exists to give increased governance and oversight. The committee would comply with the Open Meetings Act and may not take final action on behalf of the board. It will only make recommendations. So here are some examples of the topics that could easily be discussed in the Finance Committee. I'm not going to go through them all. Financial forecasting, budget, audit, and the district's internal control environment. And also the budget calendar approved earlier this evening would serve as the roadmap for the committee. So why do we need a Finance Committee? I'm not going to read all those, but really it's the eyes and ears of the financial operations of the board and assist board members in fulfilling their fiduciary duties. Who should serve on the committee? Really, it is about looking for the committee to be representative of the board, to have members who are willing to learn, ask the right questions, and bring robust decisions and recommendations to the greater board. So in summary, the administration believes strongly that a finance committee will help support the strategic planning process in determining the financial implications and implementations of our strategic plan.
Okay.
Any questions? Thoughts?
So we had talked this afternoon too about it being an every other month at this point meeting before the board meeting, right? Sorry, the frequency of the committee was every other month to begin with. And then we'd ramp it, once it got ramped up and going and it was pretty well stable, if it's working the way it's intended, it would probably go down to quarterly. So that was the intent behind a lot of that. Anybody have any questions on that? Anybody have any objections to kind of creating that committee?
Yeah, Mr. Weedman, I don't have any objections, and thank you for clarifying the cadence, because that was the one question that I did have in terms of the time commitment, the engagement with the committee. And then I also appreciated, Mr. Waldman, thank you for describing the type of board members you want represented, to include those that are seeking to learn and may not necessarily be as robust or possess a finance degree. So thank you for that.
What's your optimal size in terms of board members plus community members. Any ideas on that?
Well, one of the topics that we discussed this morning, or this afternoon, it was this afternoon, is that regardless of how many board members are actually on the committee, it's a board committee, which means it's an open meeting. And so it's not at all uncommon for there to be maybe just 3 or 4 members of the board that are a part of the committee that will always be there and are part of the discussion, with the rest of the board or other board members who want to come actually just sitting in seats, other administrators coming and sitting in seats, other community members coming and sitting in seats to listen to what's happening. So I don't know that answered your question, Christy, but it might help bring a little background to the
Yeah,
concept.
it's super helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
We talked about at least getting it up off the ground and getting it moving forward before we started to bring in outside community members. Hopefully, fairly quickly, but we wanted to get it up and established and moving forward in the right direction. And then looking for some of those outside community members that might be interested in helping, that might have that background in finance and an interest in school board finance, that could help us kind of go and move forward.
And there have been a couple of other board members besides Jim and myself who have expressed an interest. So, between, I think it's going to be the next meeting, right, where we're going to take a formal vote on there. Please, let Jim know if you're interested in serving on that, because I think the creation of that includes an appointment of board members. So if you're interested, let Jim know between now and the next board meeting. I'd like to let you know I am interested at this point.
I was wondering about that. Okay. All right, so that's good to go for next. Now we can put that on the future agenda items, like I was trying to skip
It's
to.
already on there.
All right, next we are in topics for future agenda items.
All right. Well, exactly what you just said, the creation of that finance committee. We also, at the next meeting, there'll be conversation about the IASB delegates for the the November tri-conference. And I, at this point, do not expect that I will be bringing you a full report again about the 21-22 school year, just 2 weeks from now. It seems much more likely that I would do a fuller report in July, potentially at that point also being ready to provide something in a plan form for the community. But you know that I will always share whatever it is I know, so I will likely just share updates through the superintendent's report at the beginning of the meeting. So the June meeting may be a shorter one. Does anyone have anything else for June before I move into some other topics in July and August? Well, I'll share these others and maybe that will trigger. So July, again, another 21-22 update. And then we'll be doing a closed session minutes release approval in July. So the June board meeting will also have to have a closed session attached to it so that we can review those recommendations. In August, we'll be doing an approval of the RFP award for the nighttime custodial contract. We'll also have a report on our solar panels in August. And we will also have Arbor, our food service vendor, coming to speak with us and giving us an update regarding food service. At that time, I know there were questions about the snack foods that could be available to students, and I do have a comment to make about that in a moment. But they'll also give an overall update regarding food service. And I was thinking, I just wanted to bring this to everyone's attention. I was thinking about the conversation we had at a recent board meeting about the snack foods through Arbor. And why we had that conversation? Well, we had that conversation because Chris was bringing us the renewal that included the costs of snacks. But here's the complication. Right now, based on the requirements of the federal government, food is free for all students. We are not selling snacks at all right now. So we had to do the renewal with money attached to it, with costs attached to it, because right now the requirement to be providing food for all students for free ends December 31st, correct? Yeah. So assuming that that doesn't change, next January, we will be going back to providing students with food for purchase. So I just wanted to provide that clarification in case that was helpful. That was a mouthful coming to August. Yes, Jason?
Yeah, I'd like to add something on that topic.
Yeah.
And Dr. Glickman, you weren't here the last time that this topic surfaced, and it was,
I was.
you were here.
I was here when the packages came out.
You were.
I was
I
here.
apologize for misremembering that. But if I recall from that time, it was expressed that, it would be ideal if we could get the kids in our district foods that had less sugar and more protein. And it was determined that a limiting factor to being able to do that was, with the exception of cheese and hard-boiled eggs, I believe, things with high protein and low sugar were typically warm. So if we could have, as part of this discussion, what if, right? What would it take, what equipment would we need, and where would we need it in order to be able to provide the kinds of foods that we think would better benefit our children in their learning? I would appreciate that.
We absolutely will have that, and I will now share that the last topic I had on the agenda was for September. The long-range master facilities plan will be presented, which is kind of funny that you just asked that question, because that deals with that what-if piece. So those are the upcoming topics for board meetings. Does anyone have anything they wanted to add? Okay.
Okay. We're back up to public comments. Do we have anybody online, Chris? No? Anybody sign up over there? I didn't see
No,
anybody move
no
forward,
public
so-
comment online.
Okay. Next, I need a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second.
LaCroy,
Aye.
Nash,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Mack,
Aye.
Anderson,
Aye.
Weedman,
Aye.
Braden.
Aye.
Christy Miller, I'll just call you on my cell phone, and you can do it by phone instead of trying to do the computer, because it should be fairly short. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you. All right, into closed session we shall go.
We will not be rejoining into open, right?
We are not returning into